So what do we have on the next shelf? Data point, encapsulated data. Ooh, DNA. Okay, it's not DNA information, though. I thought it was going to be, like, TCG. All that stuff. From Samina Ebaji to Elizabeth Sobek, encapsulated data. And the winner is encapsulated DNA. I keep saying data, which is honestly similar enough to DNA in concept that it's not completely wrong. Over the past 10 days, I performed an exhaustive review of data storage solutions. Magnetic, optical, quantum, even that eternity tech that FAS was shilling a year or so ago. But every other solution has one or more fatal shortcomings. Too heavy to transport, too massive to install in the allotted space, too power intensive over the centuries, too prone to failure past 300 to 400 years, etc. Encapsulated DNA will easily hold the 40 plus zettabytes we're projecting for Apollo. There are still many details to finalize, of course. To start with, we need to select the inert material in which we'll embed the molecules, already testing 16 candidate materials, as well as design and fabricate the power systems and sealed reliquaries to keep the DNA at negative 18 degrees Celsius for over 1,000 years. So long as I assure you that it didn't factor into my decision, may I confess that I deem it entirely fitting, indeed, propitious? Propitious? I genuinely have never seen that word before, I think, unless I'm just mispronouncing it entirely. I'm like, what? I don't know. Fitting, I think fitting is good enough. That we will be using the very building blocks of life to preserve human knowledge from mechanized extinction. It's not ironic, but heroic. Life as the hero, beating back the forces of oblivion. In any case, much to do. Until next time, peace be with you, Samina. So they're storing data for the future via actual DNA. Yeah? That's poetic, is the word I would probably use. Propitious? What the fuck was that? I don't know. Maybe I'm just maybe it's a word I've heard before and I'm just misreading it, but I'm like, what the Apollo update. Same source and sender. Over the past 2 months, the full benefit of our procurement of a copy of the Homer archive from Far Zenith has made itself known, and as a result, all of Apollo's key deliverables are on schedule. Apollo has already surpassed 40 million discrete data entries and continues to grow. The physical science modules are effectively complete, with soft science modules close behind. World history, cultural data, and media archives are also on schedule. Language preservation is wrapping up, a bit ahead of schedule due to falling short of our goal to preserve 4,500 languages. I suppose the tragic early loss of Papua New Guinea doomed that goal from the outset. The attendant curricula development about to begin. Speaking of the heuristic curricula, they are performing well in testing, with children and adolescents demonstrating high levels of engagement with and trust in the Aristotle and Aspasia personae. Personally, I find them highly engaging, specifically when they debate. I wish half my professors had been so entertaining. Peace be with you, Samina. I wonder what the point is of preserving languages specifically. I'm curious about that. Culture, sure, and a lot of people will argue that culture and language are completely inseparable, and I've heard that argument, sure. But, like, we're talking about, like, an archive to be found thousands of years later by some completely separate group of people.
All of this lost. The ancients' greatest gift to us.
Greatest? How about the fact we exist at all?
To abide in ignorance is a curse, Aloy. You of all people should know that.
Like, I get they're attempting to preserve history and culture and all these other things, but so many languages to keep track of. Like, that seems... Like, they're never going to come back, right? You're not going to have 4,500 languages be revived. So I'm just trying to think of the applicability of the situation. Partly because of the fact that, like, they're so tight on time But I guess the thing that they're really testing and figuring out is how to preserve the stuff as opposed to how to catalog the stuff to be preserved. So I guess if it's just a bunch of text files that they already have, then I guess just throw them all in there if they want to. It just seems like of all the things to prioritize, keeping every language is like one of those ones where I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's something worth the resources entirely. Why am I doing that? Stop. Gotta remember that you have to use fire specifically.
I'll take your head. The buried shadow demands it.
Boing. I just wish they weren't dumb goons. I don't think these guys understand anything that's happening around them that much. They've got some dumb faction that they're working for because everyone just joins up with some group that makes them feel at home because everyone needs a place where they feel like they belong, and you kind of just accept some of the stuff that you have to swallow to get there. It's more or less the standard operating procedure for humanity. So like they're not... I'm not fighting any sort of mastermind here. They're faceless goons that barely understand who they're trying to stop and why. And they're crowding around. Is that guy coming around this corner? Oh wow, there's another wall between us past that one. Just walls and walls between us. Anyone seen this body? It'll never not be funny. It is one of the most, like, just not correct ways to deliver that kind of line. It's like that was things that should have been caught and revised at some point. Anyone seen this body? Can I just ignore all these guys? Seems like I could have just gone through without even fighting any of them, actually. I didn't see anything to, like, interact with in the room, necessarily. Ah, crap, that door's not open. Kinda thought I'd be going through that door. Let's check the map. Ah, up and to the right. Probably could get through without any fights then. Or any, even kills. Herc. So if I remember correctly, I don't have boss takedowns. Can I really not invert the camera direction? That's one thing that Mass Effect has gotten right, is that you can at least invert the direction of the camera. I don't think you can... unless I've lost track of what button it is somewhere on this thing. I don't think you can change what corner of the screen your character's in. And there's moments where that'd be useful. Oh yeah, he's got a big patrol path. Clear. You'll notice that I have just never used the show target trap.
Welcome to Hades. Zero Dawn's extinction failsafe protocol. The ultimate killer app. Now, I know what you're thinking. The purpose of Gaia is to resurrect life. So why give her a subordinate function, only purpose of which is to wipe out life all over again? I mean, what? Just plumb crazy, ain't it? Well, no, it isn't. Reconstituting a biosphere? That's a tall order. Tech smart as Gaia may be, odds are she won't get it right the first time. I mean, imagine you're Gaia, 200 years from now, and this new biosphere growing, it's all gone wrong. Alkalines are skyrocketing, coniferous forests eroding under the lash of superstorms that would have drowned Noah. It's chaos, spinning top that won't stop wobbling. Now what are you gonna do? Release phase 1 organisms into that hot mess? Hope their CO2 and methane can balance out what you got started? Hell no. What you're gonna do, Gaia, is step aside while Hades takes over and does what you're just too darn nurturing and life-loving to do, which is burn that misbegotten mess of a biosphere to the ground so Gaia can start over. Okay, not burn, more like reverse terraforming operations and suffocate it. But you get the idea. Hades takes the biosphere back to zero. Square one, blank slate. And then, only then, does it hand the steering wheel back to Gaia and say, try again, old girl. And better this time, or we'll have to do this again. That's Hades. It's pretty badass when you think about it. Extinction on demand. Death on speed dial. All for the greater good, of course, but still, kind of metal. So welcome to Hades. Welcome to the void.
Okay, so if that's the original purpose of Hades, why does it want me extinct?
We need more data.
And how does it end up in the wreckage of a Pharaoh Titan, getting worshipped by the Eclipse like some kind of god?
I'm learning as you are, Aloy. Keep searching.
Oh my god, we're gonna get killed off by some douchebag in a top knot. Goody. Noise complaints. That's adorable, given the context of everything around us. Anything else around before I start reading? Something in the next room. I feel like we're going to find out that silence is actually our enemy, and that we're just helping our enemy learn everything it wants to know. And we're just being a total idiot about this entire situation. Although I don't know if, does Aloy even know how to get rid of silence? I don't think she understands her focus that well. It's like silence is just in her head, and she hasn't, like, consented to him being there, and I don't know if she knows how to get him out, ever. So I guess that's just something she's stuck with. Noise complaints from Travis Tate to Elizabeth Sobeck. Color me confused, Lizzie. Bashcore? Anyone who says the old TT codes to Bashcore is straight up lying, and you know it. Old Trav don't have no truck with commercialized razzle-dazz, nuh-uh. Heck, I'd rather guzzle a liter of Cicherum runoff than listen to my Grey Swarm for 30 seconds. Hand to God, swear to my mama's grave, and she was religious. Nah, that ain't Bashcore blasting the Hades lab, shaking these walls, rattling folks' teeth. It's death metal, girl. Classic metal. 80s and 90s mostly. Got me some Dutch deathcore, some Japanese gore grind, some Swedish cannibal themed stuff too. Stop by if you want to listen, or heck, just come within 50 meters of the lab. Ain't no Bashcore, you'll see, or hear rather, in the screech that rends the air. And feel in the throbbing pulse of the floor and the walls and the ceiling swallowing you up like you was Jonas trapped in the gullet of gothic deathfish. Hallelujah. And as for those requests to turn it down, no can do, Lizzie. This is how I code. Turn down my death metal, might as well give up stimulants, chocolate malts, and industrial accident vids. Oh, jeez. Last I heard, we were supposed to be coding Hades down here. Am I really supposed to code an extinction protocol without death metal to inspire me? Nah, I don't think so. Stay cool, Trav. Cool, so he's insufferable. Alright. Tate here. Just popped 3 blues and I earned it. Finally figured out a Goldilocks solution to Gaia's rather extreme executive authority. If that ain't worth 10 to 12 hours of dream time, what is? Before this, every usurpation protocol I designed failed in stimulation because it was either too hard or too soft. Too hard and degraded Gaia's core. Sure, it pried her fingers off the figurative driving wheel so Hades could take control, but by breaking her fingers, sometimes her arms too, so that she couldn't fly. Everything depends on Gaia taking control back after Hades has done its business, so had to find a solution that didn't leave Gaia any worse for wear. Too soft, and Gaia only pretended to relinquish control. In simulation after simulation, Hades would take command of the terraforming system and reverse operations, only to have Gaia lurk in the background, quietly reversing processes and falsifying telemetry to hide its interference. Sneaky. I swear, ain't nothing Gaia wouldn't do to keep life going, even when it's just simulating plant life. Turns out the just right solution is to isolate Gaia in a protective code shell, preserving its integrity, then unseat it from the command position so Hades can slip into the figurative captain's chair and work its magic. Those blues are coming on strong now, so I'm not really describing it so clear, but pretty sure it'll work. Yeah, those blues are pretty strong, plenty strongs. Guess it's time to sleep in bed. I'll be back to it tomorrow, alligators. Alligators. So Gaia is currently protected away in a shell, and if we release Gaia, then she might be able to reverse anything that Hades is doing right now. Basically, the question is Hades currently deployed for reasons that are intended, or is Hades malfunctioning? Because it seems like our biosphere is kind of working, but what if Aloy's entire existence and life and culture all exist within a failed experiment and it's time to reboot? That's rough. you start wondering, like, is it better to keep resetting the world until it finally gets it right? Or is it better just to go with what we got? Which is frankly what happened the first time. And by which I mean real life. Normal, not created by machine life. From Samina Abadaj to Travis Tate. See, and copy sent to Elizabeth Sobek. Archive abuse. Mr. Tate, this mail concerns Apollo archive submissions 23-876. Your 666th submission in just 5 days, and oh, what a doozy. Despite earlier warnings in response to inappropriate materials, you chose to submit 265 holographic remasters of acknowledged classics of extreme exploitation cinema. Allow me, then, to thank you on 2 counts. 1, for giving me the pleasure of rejecting your submission, therefore co-signing your favorite Eastern European torture flicks and their ilk to the dust heap of oblivion. It truly warms my heart to know that I have saved future humanity from the ordeals of experiencing not just one, but all 16 installments of Making a Millipede. Don't worry, the Pasolini material has already been preserved. Extreme, perhaps, but art. Oh, I think we're doing... it's a human centipede joke, and the idea that there was, in this universe, there's tons of them, and they kept going and making more, which could still happen, technically, in real life. 2, for clarifying a concept that has so long been ambiguous and ethically fraught for archivists such as myself, the definition of obscenity. You have freed me from the subjective quagmire embodied in Judge Potter's famous utterance, "I know when I see it." Thanks to you, I can now apply a single objective criterion. If Travis Tate submitted it, it's obscene. Accordingly, I have directed Apollo staff to summarily reject all of your future submissions, sight unseen. Perhaps you might invest the time you would have spent preparing further submissions on, oh, I don't know, your assigned work. We have a world to save after all, or the rest of us to do, anyway. Dr. Samani Ebaji. I could guess all day. I don't know. Should obscenities not be preserved? We're preserving every single language. Are we only going to preserve, like, the artful and tasteful parts of society? Although she did say she was preserving something else that people feel iffy about. So I guess that stuff... So it's not completely removing everything. But it is weird to, like, self-censor our own archives, basically. That said, if this is the future, well... Imagine how much material's on YouTube, for example. Like, so much stuff is produced so quickly at all times, at a rate that's completely impossible to deal with, basically. Like, you can't even you literally can't watch stuff on YouTube as fast as it's submitted, and the same would apply here.
Onwards.
So on one hand, it's self-censoring and misleading to remove a bunch of stuff from your own archive of yourself, but on the other hand, it might be completely impossible to actually keep everything.
Welcome to Eleuthia, the crown and king of Gaia's subordinate functions. For it is by Eleuthia that the human race will continue to exist. I am Patrick Brochard-Klein, the alpha in charge of this program. Now let one thing be perfectly clear from the outset. Eleuthia is not a genetic engineering project. Our goal is to preserve the human genome, not alter it. A snapshot of human genetic diversity, literally frozen in time. The genetic quintessence of our species, unmodified. Under my watch, our activities and initiatives will comply with the 2034 clone provisions and the 2048 Rally Accords. Now that may seem a quaint, even trivial concern to you in light of present circumstances, but as one of the authors of the Accords, it is far from trivial to me. The practical challenges before us are staggering in scope and complexity, but not insurmountable. No.
Machines.
Global collation and provisional storage of zygotes, perfection of exogenic technologies, design and perfection of servitors, to provide nurture and inculcation during early child development. All of these program components must and will proceed in tandem, to say nothing of the breakneck construction of cradle facilities at sites around the world. So, si vous êtes prêts, let us begin.
It didn't subtitle the parts where he speaks in other languages, not even in the original language. Whoa! That was really weird. I transitioned really strangely to swimming all of a sudden, even though I'm clearly... Who's a little fishy? So I apologize, but I was scanning around because I figured I'd start grabbing the audio logs and text files so I can start opening them once he finished talking. But apparently something I scanned led to Aloy and Silence having conversations awkwardly over the other voice acting. It was like inaudible, but it was there, but I don't know what they said because it was both completely incomprehensible with the layered voice acting, and also there was no second layer of subtitles. Some games nail that. Some games are really good about having two sets of subtitles when multiple people are talking that are like different colors so you can tell what's going on in parallel, which is like a really nice touch. But not this time. It was that I scanned. The chamber. This is probably it's gotta be where they're keeping the genetic information. So this answered a bit about the why there's such a weirdly genetic, diverse group of people in all of these clans. Because, like, it's like, oh, look, there's a black guy, and there's a Japanese guy, and there's a white guy, and it's like, there's so many different variations just next to each other, but they're in the same little living community. And you start questioning the logistics of that, because you'd be like, well, surely they would, like, you know, they would just start intermixing a bit at some point, but there's, like, such discrete ethnicities just everywhere. And it's almost weirdly diverse. But that depends a lot on, like, the time scale here, right? Like, how long have these people even existed? You probably don't have the greatest histories, and these aren't gargantuan populations, so maybe we're only in earlier parts.
Facilities. Elizabeth said a new generation of humans would be spawned inside such places.
She did.
All Mother Mountain. It was one of them?
There's only one way to be sure.
The hatch wouldn't open. Something about a corrupted alpha registry. I need to search Elizabeth's office.
Like, what if we're only like 3 generations in or something like that to human existence? Also, what if... Oh god. Here's a question. What if this has happened multiple times now, and society's been wiped out over and over again, like the Reapers have come to purge so that life can begin anew every time it goes wrong. Like, oh god. Oh god, is this the all story? Is this the sci-fi all story where where humanity reaches out and finds some forgotten technology from a dead society that then leads to some dark secret about the end of the universe and stuff like that? That is like a go-to for so many sci-fi stories, especially in video games. Very notably Mass Effect, of course. Except in this case, the alien technology or ancient technology is literally our technology. I wonder, yeah. I mean, that is more or less what we've seen, yeah. That's true so far. The question is whether Hades has been co-opted in some way and is doing something wrong right now, or if Hades always does this, and something really is wrong with this generation, and it's supposed to be wiped out according to the program, but then it's of course tragic because we are in this generation.
Pure logic won't cut it, Ted. To pull this off, Gaia's going to need to have some skin in the game. It has to care.
What if it runs amok? Have we learned nothing from our mistakes?
Your mistakes, I think you mean?
All I'm saying is, give it a kill switch.
She was just born, Ted. I'm not gonna put a gun to her head while she's still in the cradle.
You talk like it's a child. What if it becomes a monster?
Elizabeth, may I speak outside protocol?
Of course, Gaia, go on.
I'm sorry to contradict you, but Mr. Farrow's argument is sound. At this point, the development of my psyche is not entirely predictable. To ensure preservation of life, a hardwired override is, I believe, a necessary safeguard.
There. Satisfied, Ted?
Jeez, Liz, just do what it says.
So there's a hard override built into her because she does because she's programmed to care, so she's not going to want anything to get destroyed ever, which means that she's currently probably switched off, probably by Hades. Ah, crap.
Shut
up. Shut up. I'm just trying to scan around.
What if it runs amok?
Alright, it kind of fades away as you go away, at least.
Mistakes, I think you mean?
I guess that kind of reinforces the idea that it is playing in my environment and not in my hollows. Because, like, it's playing like it's far away. So how am I not getting constantly flooded by enemies when I turn those things on accident?
Looks like it used to hold something.
Nuts would benefit from antilopinae morphologies, though caprid forms show superior load-bearing capability.
You're a quick study, Gaia.
Dr. Sobek, as I have conducted this comparative analysis of mammalian morphologies, I have gathered extensive data on the quaternary extinction event.
Oh? And your assessment? Gaia?
Logically speaking, the extinction was a natural consequence.
And yet,
I find the loss of megafaunal species unaccountably sad. That they passed forever into oblivion causes me to experience a grief that is difficult to describe. Am I malfunctioning?
No, Gaia, you're not. This is good. It's very good.
So I had to double check real quick because I was curious, because quaternary is a word that we use to refer to very recent geological deposits, because it's on a geologic time scale, it's a recent type thing. But the quaternary extinction actually refers to, like, the era in which, like, the woolly mammoths, I believe, were wiped out and stuff like that. So it's old, but it's geologically new, is the contradiction.
You will undergo a brief period of unconsciousness during relocation to Prime and final instatement.
Elizabeth, may I speak outside protocol?
When you're back up and running at the new site, we'll bring the subordinate functions online and see where we stand.
Elizabeth, I detect distress. Are you all right?
I'm fine.
I realize that circumstances compel us to launch earlier than we hoped, but all subsystems are operational. The odds stand in our favor.
But what if... Gaia, there's nothing left out there. You can't even survive unless you're wearing an environmental suit. There are billions dead, in fear and agony. What if it was all for nothing?
Elizabeth, extinction was inevitable. Thanks to you, life will have a future.
You really believe that?
I believe in you, Elizabeth. In you, all things...
Whoa, that faded out. She's getting consoled by her own project's artificial creation. That'll screw with your head. Everyone's still marked back there, and I can't unmark them now. Awkward. Eventually I'll load out of the area, I suppose. It'll be really awkward if I encountered another stealth section and I mark those people, and then I have even more marking things floating around, and I can't tell which ones are from my current fight and which ones aren't. Odyssey has failed. From Elizabeth Sobek. Text mail. To all alphas. All. Some terrible news, I'm afraid. Far Zenith has informed me that the Odyssey mission has failed. Last night, telemetry indicated a catastrophic antimatter containment failure as the drive spun up to depart the solar system. The ship, its crew, its cargo of zygotes and seeds, its alpha build of Apollo, all were lost. Zero Dawn is now the only hope for the continuation of the human species and earthly life. We must succeed. Elizabeth. So there was another separate project called the Odyssey at Far Zenith, and that was going to have a different attempt to try to preserve life by literally removing samples from the Earth, presumably to come back later? Or, I don't know. No, it was trying to depart the solar system, so the idea was to go to a different planet entirely. It's like the Andromeda Initiative, isn't it?